them forward, including the podium. Appreciate that. I'd like to call the January 22nd, 2024 meeting, the Town of Niskayuna Planning Board and Zoning Commission to order. Ms. Bergami, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme?
Here.
Ms. Pulaski is excused and absent. Mr. Khan?
Here.
Ms. Strain?
Here.
Mr. Darpino?
Here.
Ms. Gold is excused and absent. Ms. Gomes?
Here.
And Chairman Walsh.
Here. Okay, thank you. Okay. Let's see, we have the approval of the minutes from the January 8th, 2024 meeting. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Khan for approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. D'Arpino. Any comments or corrections to the minutes? I have none. Anybody? No? Okay, all those in favor of approval of the minutes from the January 8th, 2024 meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or any abstentions? One abstention here,
I'm going to abstain.
2 abstentions. Okay, Trish, you got that? Okay. All right, the minutes are approved because we have a quorum, right? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we have 4, so we're all set. All right, next is the public hearing. This is a public hearing for 2890 River Road, an application for approval of a plot plan minor subdivision for a 3-lot minor subdivision. Ms. Bergami, would you please read the notice?
Notice is hereby given that pursuant to the Code of Town of Niskayuna, New York, and the applicable provisions of the town law in the state of New York, a public hearing will be held by the Planning Department, by the Planning Board and Zoning Commission of the Town of Niskayuna in the Town Board Meeting Room at 1 Niskayuna Circle on the 22nd day of January 2024 at 7 p.m. to consider an application from Ryan Lucy, property owner, for a 3-lot minor subdivision in the Town of Niskayuna. Tax parcel ID number 51-1-7.1 and 51.9-2-1.1. The properties are located within the R1 Low Density Residential Zoning District. A copy of the application for approval of plat plan minor subdivision will be available for inspection at the Planning Department in the Town Hall and can be viewed at the town website under the Public Hearings tab and will be shown electronically during the public hearing. If you wish to express an opinion regarding the public hearing, you may do so at the above-mentioned time and place. If you cannot be present, you may request a virtual login to the meeting by emailing lrobertson@niskayuna.org or calling 518-386-4531, or you may set forth your opinion in a letter which will be made part of the permanent record. Please note there is a 5-minute time limit for each speaker at the public hearing, and submitted letters will not be read out loud at the public hearing, but such letters will be included in the minutes and added to the record. The Planning Board and Zoning Commission of the Town of Niskayuna will hear all persons interested during the aforementioned public hearing. By order of the Planning Board and Town of Niskayuna, New York, Kevin A. Walsh, Chairman, Planning Board and Zoning Commission.
Okay, thank you. All right, so for the public hearing, the first thing we're going to do is have the applicant or a representative of the applicant come forward and just high-level summary of the project for the public and for the record. And then after that occurs, then we'll open it to the public to hear what you have to say. And I'd also like to mention that under discussion items tonight, later on, we will be talking about 2890 River Road. So if there's any questions that can come up that can be answered, we will answer them probably during that portion of the meeting under discussion items. Okay, thank you, Mr. Lucy.
Mike Dussault, Engineering Ventures.
Oh, sorry, Mr.
That's okay.
I'll get it sooner.
High level, it's a 3-lot subdivision, minor subdivision. We have 2 lots off of River Road, lots 1 and 2, all having single-family residences on them. Lot 3 is off of the Seneca Road, off the cul-de-sac. There's significant wetlands on site, about a little bit over 2 acres. There's some proposed disturbance to the wetlands, and shown on the map on the screen, those areas in red on lot 3. We have obtained a nationwide permit, number 29, for the disturbance of wetlands. We have that permit in hand. Part of the project, we're proposing to give an easement to the town of Niskayuna on the eastern portion of the site, mostly along Seneca Avenue, for a drainage easement for addressing some issues that happen to be at 8 Seneca Road and on the 42-inch culvert crossing under River Road. That's pretty much it on the high level. Oh, I should mention that the Each lot, we are having, installing bioretention areas in each lot to eliminate the impervious areas from stormwater from the new pervious areas on each lot on the existing wetlands and the existing drainage issue at River Road and Seneca Road.
Okay, thank you.
Can you comment on the walking path to the park?
There's an existing walking path on the southwest corner of Lot 3. That's going to stay as it is today. I can ask the applicant to talk about any discussions with the town on the easement that have been asked for.
If that's relevant to the public hearing. That's good. Yeah, it's a
Okay.
discussion item. We can talk about that later on.
Okay.
We'll see if there's any questions from the
Yeah,
public.
that was the extent I was
Yeah.
actually asking,
Yeah.
just for you to mention.
Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, so the public hearing is open, public hearing for 2890 River Road. Anyone wish to be heard regarding this public hearing, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and we'll listen to what you have to say. So public hearing is open. Anybody? No? All right, you know if we have anybody online, Laura? Do we have any communications, email or otherwise?
No, I don't have anybody online and I did not receive any emails.
Okay. All right, give it one last call. 2890 River Road, public hearing. Okay. Seeing or hearing none for the public hearing, I'm going to close the public hearing. Thank you. And we'll move on the agenda. Next up is privilege of the floor. Anyone wishing to be heard regarding any planning and zoning matters in the town of Niskuna, again, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Privilege of the floor is open. Anybody in the audience? No? How about Laura? Do we have anybody online at all tonight?
I don't have anybody online. Did you guys want to address the board at all, Eliza?
Anybody?
did you?
Yeah, privilege of the floor is open. Any planning and zoning matters, now's the time.
Eliza, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
My name is Ambrek Misbahi. I own the property at 2219 Knott Street. I purchased the property a few years back for our own purpose to open up a cafe over there. And since the work of Knott Street took place, I'm kind of like changed my mind on it. And I am in the process of discussing renting the space to a business on Union Street, which should I say the name? Yeah. She owns Be Inspired on Union Street. Be Inspired Home, is that what- yeah. And we are in discussions with her and we'd like to rent the space to her. And she wants to pretty much open up there by like March 1st.
Okay.
And I guess tomorrow I'll come in and maybe submit some drawings or something. So
Yeah, come on to the building department, make an
Yeah.
application, and then, they will do the first cut review, see if it's in compliance with the code, and we'll take
Yeah.
it from there.
okay,
Okay.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
This will be a tenant change,
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, as long as it's, conforming.
right?
All right. Anybody else? Privilege of the floor? No? Okay, and no other communications for privilege of the floor? Okay, I'm going to close privilege of the floor. All right, so new business, we got a couple of resolutions tonight. First resolution being Resolution 2024-03, a resolution for site plan approval for a 2,700 square foot addition, that's a 27% increase in size, to the existing 9980 square foot office building, and expansion of the parking lot at 1430 Balltown Road. And the resolution in the packet is all online, but I'll summarize where resolved for the record. Okay, resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission hereby determine that this project will not have a significant effect on the environment and hereby directs the town planner to file a negative secret declaration with the following comments from the CAC findings. 1, use white oaks for tree plantings. 2, minimize the visual impact of the stormwater basin to the town center overlay district. 3, include EV charging stations on the site and continue exploring the use of green energy practices, including solar panels. 4, consider a pesticide-free lawn maintenance program. Further resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission finds the above referenced site plan meets the requirements of the zoning code and therefore hereby approves this site plan with the following conditions. 1, signage. This resolution is for tenant change only. The Planning Board shall review and approve any proposed signage for the building at a later date. 2, final landscaping and tree planting plans shall be reviewed and approved by the Niskuna Tree Council. 3, prior to site disturbance, the applicant shall participate in a pre-construction meeting with the town of Niskuna and TDE and shall address any concerns raised by the town. 4, prior to the pre-construction meeting, any engineering and drainage concerns will be addressed to the satisfaction of the town superintendent, water, sewer, and engineering. B, any questions or concerns raised by the town designated engineer will be addressed by the applicant in a formal letter to the town. And C, any minor changes to the final site plans will be addressed to the satisfaction of the town planning department. Condition number 5, prior to site disturbance, the site plan drawing shall be modified to reflect agreed upon decisions of the pre-construction meeting, if any, and distributed as required to the town and for all involved contractors. Final site plan shall be submitted to the town labeled for construction. 6, prior to site disturbance, confirmation by the applicant from the Department of Public Works that material specifications and site details, including road and utility plan profiles, meet town standards. And finally, number 7, in accordance with Chapter 180 of the Soil Erosion and Sediment Control Ordinance of the town of Niskuna, the applicant shall put in place soil erosion and sediment control measures sufficient to stabilize disturbed areas. These measures shall be satisfactory to the superintendent of water, sewer, and engineering and shall remain in place until such time as natural vegetation has been successfully established. Can I have a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
Resolution moved for adoption by Mr. Laflamme. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Strang. And discussion on the board.
The only follow-up question I had was there any determination on the traffic flow behind the building?
Well, there was the modifications that we talked about last time on the drawing, right, Laura? Slight modification. I think that, if that's your question,
Well, there was a right angle or a
Yeah.
gradual
yeah,
turn?
is this the latest right here, Laura?
Yeah, so they're proposing to remove the concrete median and increase the green space on that curve. So it's not perfect, but it's much more of a four-way intersection back there.
There's still a hard right or a gradual right turn though, right?
But it's not really a lane.
Okay.
You can see here before, like this is the before.
That's my question. Is it a lane or,
So they took.
because I
they-
was not sure by looking.
It's really not. No, they took this and bumped it all out to green space,
Okay.
and
Thank you.
then yeah, I mean it's still a wide. I don't know, Luigi, if you can kind of estimate how much pavement that is. It's still wide, but it's more of a four-way intersection than it was before.
So to confirm, it's not an asphalt paved road for cars to drive over.
It is.
It is. Okay. So that remains the way it is.
Maybe I'm not understanding the question.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, they just basically modified that triangular portion and increased the green space. It's paved area there. So you'd be able to, a commuter will be able to go up and then hang a right and go around toward the back and come into the parking lot. All right. And if you egress out of the parking lot, out of the back, then you're going to go left and then you'll be on the other side of that triangle and then either go straight forward out to Knott Street East or hang a left and come out
Or
to Ball
take a
Tower.
left and come down. Got it. All right. Thanks.
But that gray space that's like outlined out, this is to be removed and just made to asphalt.
Okay. Is that you okay, Chris?
As you explained it, yes.
Yeah. It works. Any other questions or comments?
I do have just a couple of clarifying statements / questions.
Mhm.
It has nothing to do with the technical nature of the application as it is. So right now, this property is being leased / rented to the Niskuna School District.
The proposal is to lease it to the Niskuna School District.
Okay,
yes.
so as we know today, there's no plans for the school district to take ownership of the property.
No, that's not included in the application.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I guess sometime down the road, we may have to consider that could happen, right?
So if the school decided to take ownership of the property, it would not need to come back to the planning board. It would just be a transaction because the use of the property and the tenant wouldn't actually change. And underlying owners to existing plazas and things like that change all the time.
Right, but if that, sorry, Laura, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, so I'm
That's
just saying it could at a later date be owned by the school, but it wouldn't need any more approvals from us for that to
Okay,
happen.
so I'm glad you're carrying forward my theoretical discussion, recognizing it's only speculative, right? But so at someday, if that were to happen, we lose any jurisdiction over the property.
that is a really interesting question. There's limited immunity for school districts, and I don't know if it extends all the way to the office building or not, but there is a potential.
Okay.
There's a potential if it becomes owned by the school district that a fair amount of their activities would not be within our jurisdiction anymore.
All right. So in leading up to those questions, I've reviewed the plans. As a planning board member of the town, I'm comfortable with the plans as they stand. But I just wanted to raise that point that if, potentialities of the future occur, we could be faced with, like all of the school district properties, right, where we won't be able to have any influence.
It's very limited. There's still some things, but it's very limited.
Okay, any other questions or comments? No? I mean, I just want to mention Ms. Gold did email. She wasn't able to make it tonight, and she supports the resolution for the record. Okay, and she was the project lead on this. All right, so hearing no other questions, then Ms. Bergami, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme?
Aye.
Mr. Khan?
Aye.
Ms. Strain?
Aye.
Mr. Dorpino?
Aye.
Chairman Walsh?
All right, you're going to recuse yourself? Yeah, so you should
Oh, okay,
call
I'm
her
sorry.
name, and then she'll recuse herself. Yep.
Ms. Gomes?
And I will recuse.
And Chairman Walsh is aye. Resolution's approved. All right, so thank you, and the conditions, will be satisfied, of course, and this will allow you to go forward, so. All right, and thank you. All right, next resolution is Resolution 2024-04, resolution for site plan approval for a tenant change to a Market 32 grocery store at 2333 Knott Street East. And again, summarizing the resolution, a little bit shorter this time. Resolved, the Planning Board and Zoning Commission finds the above referenced site plan meets the requirements of the zoning code and previous site plan approvals, and therefore hereby approves the site plan with the following conditions. 1, outdoor storage. No outdoor storage or obstruction shall be allowed on the sidewalk between the main grocery store entrance and the secondary grocery store entrance to protect pedestrian passageway through the plaza. 2, crosswalks. Prior to completion of the building permit, crosswalks shall be striped in the 6 locations identified by the planning office in the aerial map provided to the applicant labeled Knott Street Site Plan. 3, sidewalks. Prior to completion of the building permit, the missing section of sidewalk between the parking lot and Knott Street East identified by the planning office in the aerial map provided to the applicant labeled Knott Street Site Plan shall be installed to the satisfaction of the planning office. 4, landscaping. Prior to issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall supply a landscaping plan for review and approval by the tree council. The landscaping beds in front of the proposed Market 32 should be refreshed. Dead or severely distressed trees with the property should be removed, and any removed trees should be replaced. And finally, number 5, signage. This resolution is for tenant change only. The planning board shall review and approve any proposed signage and facade color changes at a later date. Can I have a motion for approval of this resolution?
I'll make that motion.
Motion for approval by Ms. Strang. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. DiArpino, and we'll have some discussion. I do have one suggestion on the landscaping. It says prior to issuance of a building permit. The way that's written, I think that could impact the applicant from getting a building permit to start moving forward with interior remodeling. So I'm going to propose a change on this one to be consistent with the other conditions. I was going to suggest we strike the word issuance of a building permit and replace it with completion of the building permit. So that way they can get started and they have until completion of the building permit to update the landscaping, especially now with the ground being frozen, it'd be a little tough to do. So I'm going to make a motion that we modify condition number 4. Well, let me ask first, does anybody else have any other changes that they'd like to suggest on the resolution?
I actually have a question about this to Laura. So in this unit, do we issue a CO for the work that we're going to do, and can we condition the CO on the landscaping plan, or do you want to, like, what triggers, what signifies that the work is complete here?
I would, and if you wanted to, we could make the language more specific, but completion of the building permit for a tenant change like that requires a final CO. So you could do a temporary CO until the landscaping was done, or he said that his opening date was like May, June. They may have time to have completed the landscaping by then. So they may just be able to go to final CO.
Oh, yeah, so I don't want it to hold things up, but I want it to be enforceable.
Yeah, so it would be a condition of the final CO.
But we would let them operate with the temporary CO with that as the only open condition.
Correct.
That would work for me.
All right, is that, so I'm not clear, so are you suggesting changes of this, or are we still going to stick with completion of the building permit?
As long as the town retains the ability to not issue the final CO until the landscaping work is completed. And it sounds like we've got the latitude within our normal operating procedure and code to do it that way.
Okay.
What you proposed, Mr. Chairman, works for me.
Okay, right. Okay, so I'm going to make a motion, we modify condition number 4 to completion of the building permit to be consistent with the other conditions. Again, allow them to go forward. So I'll make that motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second by Mr. Laflamme. Okay, so I have a motion and a second on a modified resolution or amended resolution. I don't know if you need to call rolls or we can do a show of hands here, I guess.
Yeah, for the amendment.
If remember, we can do a show of hands. All those in favor of amending the resolution as stated to modify condition 4 about the landscaping, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we have an amended resolution and we can go back to discussion. Anybody have anything else regarding market 32?
I have a question, and I don't know, this could be kind of late to be asking. Are they keeping the clothing bins at the corner? Do we know?
Do we know that?
The clothing bins,
The donation
the
clothing
donation
bins?
bins?
I wasn't aware there were clothing bins.
They're actually gone right now.
They
They're
are?
gone right now.
Oh,
But they
okay.
were there, and I didn't, like, do you guys regularly have those on your site?
Were they owned by ShopRite?
I don't know if they were owned by the landlord or if they were by
Maybe
ShopRite.
a landlord thing.
Yeah, it sounds like a landlord.
I
just
thing,
know they-
obviously.
They were not kept very well, and it really degraded this site quite a bit, I thought, but
There were complaints about it, and I believe it was removed in
Okay.
part because
Okay,
of the
well, that's good.
complaints. Yeah, I don't think it's there now. I think it went away about a year ago, maybe.
that long?
I think so.
Oh, jeez, okay.
But we could double check because
Okay.
my memory isn't always great. And then the one thing I want to say is we put the signage and facade colors. We talked about those a little bit at the last meeting, but they're not being a part of this proposal. And I didn't know if the applicant has any update on changing the color of the back of the building. Like if you,
Mr. Lee, would you please come to the
Yeah.
microphone, state your name for the record, and now we can hear you, get you on record, okay?
Currently, we have not decided about painting of the back of the building, refreshing it. We have a limited budget, and we were concentrating most of our resources to the front facade of the building.
okay, were you able to take a look at the back and see kind of the state of it though? Were you able to go out and look at it?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, because I checked it after a meeting and like there's still a graffiti tag and things like that in there.
So I don't know whether, if it's that way all year long or the trees block your view of it. I know right now the foliage gone, but I will take a look at it. And we haven't made a final decision about what we would do in the back of the building.
Yeah, and I know the last time we talked about like maybe changing the window trim and stuff like that. So all of that will go with the sign package. This is tenant change, so you guys can get in there and start doing your work, and all the facade and signs will come back again.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, and
We'll make a formal submittal for the signage package, which will include the exterior paint colors.
Correct.
Yep.
And hopefully the back.
Yep. Okay.
yeah, we look forward to that. I have no other comments or questions. Anybody else? All right, Ms. Bargami, please call the roll.
Mr. Laflamme?
Aye.
Mr. Khan?
Aye.
Ms. Strain?
Aye.
Mr. Darpino?
Aye.
Ms. Gomes?
Aye.
Chairman Walsh?
Aye, the resolution is approved. Okay, and we look forward to having the supermarket available again, so we appreciate it. All right, that's it for new business. So I'm gonna go to discussion items. So first up for discussion is 2890 River Road, an application for approval of plat plan for a minor subdivision. That's a 3-lot minor subdivision. And I guess I'll turn it over to Mr. Khan.
Yeah, so interestingly, we had no public members of the public at the public hearing today. And I think we'd received something before it was at least logged onto the.
Yeah, I actually feel like
Right.
we've had a pretty good communication generally with the residents, and there's a
Right.
lot of them online at the last meeting. So I do think that they're informed.
Yeah. So as far as I'm concerned, the only open question really is around the determination of whether the town will get an easement to the eastern wetland areas or it'll be a deed. We can discuss that a little bit, but look, at the end of the day, as the planning board, we're going to follow the lead of the water and sewer department and the planning department,
And the highway
right?
superintendent.
And the highway superintendent.
Mhm.
So, we can talk about that. But other than that, I think, we're in a position to call for a resolution for this minor subdivision.
Super. My name's Robert Cohen. I'm an attorney with Parisi Cohen and Scotia, and I'm here on behalf of Ryan and his team. We did meet with the town planner and our committee this week to discuss some open items that I think have been a concern during the development of the project. The one being the lot along Seneca Avenue, and discussing the concept of potentially doing some type of easement to the town or deeding the property to the town so the town would have access to deal with the water situations that they have. The applicant is willing to deed over that parcel to the town with the intent that it's going to remain basically in the similar state that it's in. Obviously used by the town to deal with the water issues at hand. And the other issue that was discussed was the pathway. There is this natural path in the corner of the property that is used by the residents off of Seneca. And there's certainly a desire to maintain that pathway and make that available to the residents of Seneca to continue to use that to get to the park. Just in the beginning of this evening, I do have approximately 22 letters from the Seneca residents in favor of maintaining that pathway and what's being proposed by the applicant. So I'd like to submit that to the board. At the meeting this week, we discussed the concept of whether it makes more sense of an easement with regards to that pathway or a deed. On behalf of the applicant, I'm kind of leaning more towards a deed, transfer ownership of that parcel to the town. Once again, with the understanding that it's going to continue in its natural state, and just relieve my client of any liability issues associated with the public using that pathway or any kind of responsibility on him to maintain that pathway. The pathway, though, is up against his property where he is going to be building his house. So he certainly doesn't want to see any major changes with regards to that pathway or any kind of development, nor does he want to see the Seneca lot, be turned over to another developer and have someone build a house, which was what his original plans were. So I think, I appreciate everything that the committee has been doing to move this forward. It's been a long process, and I think it sounds like we're getting to the finish line, and we're hoping that these two accommodations will get us to that finish line.
So I'd like to thank you, Mr. Lucy, definitely and I think I had stated it the last time, what at least priority-wise, both are important, but priority-wise, getting a deed for the wetlands. And ultimately, what's the expectation there is that, the town does something in the future to upgrade
For
the
drainage. Mhm.
and we'll need good access to those wetlands to be able to do it. And the deed on the bike path too, I think that makes sense, right? It's your choice. So I do, in hearing what the specific concern is coming from the applicant, and maybe Rob, this is a question for you. Clearly I'll say planning board myself, the owner, right? The town should really not be doing anything to further develop, right? Like selling that property for building homes or anything like that. Is that a valid restriction that can be put or a characteristic of the deed?
Yeah, so I'm a little late getting to this,
Yeah.
but I think there's two different ways to make it work.
Could you please go forward? Thank you.
So, and I understand the concerns that Mr. Cohen stated as to his client to make sure that if they deed it to the town, that it doesn't get used by the town for something different than their intended use, which is solve a drainage problem and also to provide access. So one way to deal with it would be potentially to have them deed the property to the town with the restriction that prevented further conveyance from the town, although I'm not sure. I would need, or Elena or someone in the office would need to do some on that, but clearly while the town owned it, they could restrict and to make sure that it wasn't resold to a private developer, that sort of thing. Separately, if the applicant continued to own it, you could have a deed restriction and easement going the other way, or I'm sorry, an easement going the other way, which would allow the town to have access to the portion of it that it needed for drainage. And we do drainage easements all the time in other contexts. And then have an easement for access also. So I could really see it working either way.
Yeah, so I think we had discussed the second case you mentioned before.
Yeah.
And there was some discussion at length with the, water and sewer and highway department. And the actual full deeding to the town was preferable
Okay.
than to have an easement or a deed restriction. So this is, I think at the end of the day, though, look, the terms and conditions finally with the town, you should make sure that they ensure that, the town plays by the rules that you would like to see.
Here's what I would say, that what the applicant is asking for vis-a-vis what the town does with it sort of makes sense, right?
Right.
Like you get that if they wanted to have a lot there, they would want to make sure that the town used it for what we want to use it for and not to give it to some future purchaser when we want to raise money for something else. So that makes sense to me.
Good.
And I
Perfect.
feel like
So,
it kind of dovetails because the Conservation Advisory Council wanted to make sure that that was land conservation area. So Elena was at the meeting and did think that we could accept it with deed restriction.
Good.
So that should be okay. And the other thing, which we haven't talked about before, is that we usually go through the parkland fees and the trunk fees kind of in the resolution for final approval. But because there's a little of the area over there that is upland, the planning board could accept that as the parkland. So that we don't have to take parkland fees for this subdivision. That can be the parkland.
Where exactly are you referring to, Laura?
So like this area that's outside the wetlands, this is where he had originally proposed to build a
Right.
home, but it was too squished and it couldn't really fit.
Yeah, and I mean, to some extent, that the purpose of the path, the walking path.
And the purpose of the path
fundamentally
is actually better for parkland too.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we can get the path and that side, then I think that can be like the parkland negotiation, and then that can come off the table, and then you just have trunk fees.
I mean, so here I'm just speaking for myself. The board will have to weigh in, but
Yeah.
I think I find that as a favorable, action.
I do too, but I think we should be clear. I can't remember what it is per lot. Was it 1,700, 1,500?
I can look
You don't
at
need to look, it's in that ballpark. So
Okay.
that would save the applicant actually $4,500 plus. So
Right, that was something we discussed
Yeah.
at the meeting.
Yep.
Yeah, we did
It's
discuss that.
something that the applicant would be looking for.
since you're turning over a significant portion of land to help solve
Yeah, I mean,
problems. Yep.
I think this is a
Yeah, I'm okay with that. you
something
know.
favorable, and I'll.
Does anybody have any concerns from the board on that?
The only thing I was going to say is following from our previous plan board meeting, we will be addressing the town reviewers' comments and as well as updating the site plan that we're looking at today to reflect the conversation that we're having, and that will be submitted to Laura and Clark tomorrow.
Okay. All right. Well, we're calling for today. I'll make the official call. We can call for a resolution for the tenant.
Yep.
Tender resolution
For the minor
for
subdivision
approving the
approval.
subdivision.
Yep.
We still are going to have a final site plan, approval down the road, but I think
Right. Now-
everything is in place for this resolution.
Right. Now, it'd be at the February 12th meeting, again, assuming that all the paperwork gets in a timely fashion for the planning department, which I'm sure you will. Okay. Any other comments?
Just following up, as far as the meeting for that resolution, which I think you said was February 12th.
Yep.
Is it at that meeting, do we need to have accomplished what we're going to do, the actual deeds and stuff like that? Would that be the goal, to get that all done? So what's actually going to be approved at that meeting, I guess is the question.
It's a good goal, but we don't normally have the deeds ready for final subdivision approval. That normally comes in later. But it is up to your timeline, like, because I've been working with Attorney Hess on a different subdivision that was approved by the planning board actually months ago, and they still haven't finalized their deeds, and you can't record the subdivision without the deeds. So you can get approval from the planning board at that meeting and then work on your deeds. But you can't record the subdivision without the deeds because you record them at the same time.
So I mean, from the
That's
planning
fair,
board's
right, Rob?
perspective,
Yeah.
That's a totally accurate summation.
And the parkland fees were actually $3,000 a lot. So
Oh, 3,000, okay. There you go.
from the planning board's perspective, though, and they won't, deeds won't be ready, we would put that in as conditions in the
yes, it's
subdivision
always a
approval.
condition. And then I usually work with Rob because he actually usually works with me on the deeds. That's the specific thing that he comes and helps us with. And then we finalize the deeds and then record the subdivision.
All right, Ms. Corn, you got that, right? So if the deeds aren't in place by the time February 22nd, whatever our next meeting is,
Yeah, 12th, and it'd be
February
conditions.
12th.
There'll be conditions
it'll
for all
be
that
a
stuff.
condition in there.
So that would also give time to work out, like, it's not exactly plain vanilla, right? We're going to have to go over some language of deed restrictions to make sure that some protection is offered to your client, that type of thing. So there may be a little back and forth on that. But at least you can go forward with the idea that the subdivision is approved, subject to finishing some of the legal issues.
Perfect. That's great.
Makes sense. Okay, and then that'll be the 12th, the Monday, so, make sure on that weekend when the package is available, take a look at the resolution, make sure you're comfortable. If you have any questions, you can reach out to project lead or the planning department, before the meeting, okay?
Okay.
Sound good, everybody?
Very good.
All right.
Thank you.
No, good, thank you.
The board is
Yep.
all good with this?
Everybody, any concerns? No?
Okay.
All right,
Okay, if I approach Laura, give the.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, we'll put them in the record. That's probably why no one showed up. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All set?
Thanks.
Before I move on to discussion items, I had one thing I forgot at the beginning. I was a little confused there, as always. So just want to mention at the January 9th town board meeting, they made some appointments to the planning board, and I meant to do this at the beginning. They appointed Ms. Strang to fill a vacancy. She's now seated on the board, so congratulations. They also appointed Ms. Gomes as a alternate, so welcome, and I'm glad to have you. And they also appointed Ms. Bilovsky to fill a vacancy, and she could not be with us tonight. So congratulations to all of them. I look forward to working with them. And I'd also like to thank the town board for reappointing me your chairman for calendar year 2024. I appreciate their support. Okay. And with that, we'll move on to reports. First up being 2690 Balltown Road. That's the GE Vernova. I guess Laura or Clark want to let us know what's coming up, I guess, here.
Yeah, so they just didn't get it quite in by the deadline, but we just wanted to let you guys have a quick peek at the site plan so you're ready to take a look at it next month. This is then we just did the subdivision, so this is the new northern parcel, the GE Vernova. It's off of Balltown Road. Here's the intersection of Riley Way, Balltown Road, and the GE Vernova plant. They have these two existing buildings in white, and they're proposing to add this new yellow building adjacent to the sort of southern building. The discussions they had with Clark and I were that it's kind of another project type building, similar to the one that we approved that never got built on the GE Aerospace, where they had like a specific type of research that they were doing in that building. So they told Clark and I that it's pretty limited change in number of employees. And it's going to be too high, so it'll need a denial. This is a more zoomed in closer version of the site plan. So that's just a heads up. We'll do a little more diving into the code and seeing what's happening there. Clark did identify that it's going to be helpful. GE mentioned that there's a variety of changes that they may need to do now that they're separating, and some of them may involve additional buildings as well. And so we want to try and get a handle on all of the buildings on that parcel if they know, so that we can understand what the impacts to the sewer line would be. This is the same sewer line that Kelt's Farm goes to that has, it's full. So this project in particular may not impact it because it's not really changing employees. It's moving them around and giving them research space. But if they have other plans, it would be good if we can get kind of a full broad brush of them so that we can be ready when they have time crunch projects to know what needs to happen with the sewer line.
Yeah, so, yeah, if it's research space or test space, whatever, I agree. We probably should have an idea of how many employees they have there, though, currently as part of the application and what they're projecting is, like you said, because we already know how many square feet we have there and how many parking spots we have. So I guess we could always calculate that, backdoor it that way also.
And the other thing, which, I mean, it may be a bit of a long shot, but when Schwaber Drive went in, we did have the applicant reach out to DOT and try and get a light on Balltown for Riley Way and GE, and it didn't meet the warrant. But if GE does enough stuff for that top site, it's worth asking again if there's some way, because I drive that way home and I just think people trying to take a left out of Riley Way or the GE site, it's just
Brutal.
it's brutal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it'd be worth it if they're doing a bunch more improvements to see if we could get a light there again.
Great.
So Laura, when we get to officially dealing with this, I will recuse myself, but I'll ask a question now. Since you brought up this issue with the sewer trunk,
The sewer, yes.
for the other GE property, the one that's currently on, River Road, Richard Circle,
They are
is it on the same sewer trunk?
Yes, they all are. So improvements to either side, we want to look at them holistically.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, any questions? All right. And next topic we've been discussing, that's the project submittal timelines update. Is that Clark wants to speak to that, or you, Laura?
Well, we had Kevin and I had a good meeting about this. I know Mr. DiArpino asked to put it on there so that we don't lose track of it. Clark and I have been working on some things, and I know David put together a very detailed email. So what we're going to try and do is put a package together, hopefully by the next meeting, for you guys to take a look at.
Okay.
And what we're proposing is we'll put a draft together. It'll be interesting to talk about it because one of the things that came up, from the last meeting is that maybe we should, have longer amounts of time between meetings and recommendations so we have more time to review. And so maybe it even makes sense to not have packets come out on Friday, but have them come out on Wednesday. We're going to look at a bunch of different things and then see what we can do. But if we have the packets come out on Wednesday, for instance, that's going to push all of our dates back because we couldn't just say, okay, packets are due on Wednesday, but you still have, the 10 days prior to the Friday. So we'll just look at a couple options and then we can just think about them.
Okay, so was the plan to put together agenda statement for this?
I think it'll just stay under reports unless we do some kind of a formal voting.
I'm just saying if it was under, something, we got to have something written down, other stuff we're talking about. You said there was an email, David, you put together or something, or?
Yeah, it was probably a few months ago.
Oh, okay,
We
all
were-
right, I
it
saw
was
that.
just so the content of the email was basically, I think that generally we do well with submissions and getting things in. It's just we have occasionally applicants that get stuff in at the last minute or they're squeezed between 2-week meetings. And we've all seen this in the past couple of years. There are applicants that do bring stuff to the meetings or get it in, on Monday or whatever. So between having, an established time frame that we can give to every applicant, whatever many days that is that the planning board needs, I think would be prudent moving forward. And then the other thing too would be if we can get the agenda established by a specific date so that the packet can go out and it's not modified from there, I think that would be helpful. I would support an extra day at least getting the packets because I know that sometimes on Fridays they don't come out at a specific, there's not a specific time that they get posted. So if we knew that the deadline, we'll just make it up as noon at Wednesday, and that's when we know the packets are going out, then you have a couple days to go through it. We get them on Fridays. Our meetings are Monday night. Sometimes things are a little tough to get the crunch in, especially when we have a heavy agenda.
Yeah.
And, sometimes we're multiple leads on projects. So if, just with the planning department working through that, the end result may be that some applicants that want to work on an accelerated schedule just aren't going to get into every meeting with an update or something progressing. That's just the reality of it. And I don't think that that's a big change from what we've seen. But again, I think if we had a little bit, just a better formal structure for it. I would support making an agenda item. I'd be happy to be the project lead on it if it's just something to, to keep moving forward. I believe we would vote on this as a board. Is that?
We never have before. I think the policy was just set by the planning department.
Okay.
I'm okay with creating a policy document that we run past the planning board for approval, but I think generally speaking, it's, Clark has been going through the code and pulling out all of the code timelines
Yeah.
to make sure that we're not conflicting with the code in any way. He's been working pretty hard on that. But the some of it, I think, is kind of internally set by the site plan application. Because another thing that would come from this is that I think that we should put everything on the site plan application. So once we have this policy up and running, the site plan should also reflect the deadline. I mean, because they sign it, right? So the site plan application says, I'm agreeing to all of these things. And so I think it would be helpful to even put, that type of stuff on the site plan.
Yeah. And so, Laura, I'm really glad you raised that second point you raised. And Clark, thank you for doing the research work you're doing, because so I definitely agree that in addition to the conduct of our meeting with submittals from applicants, I do think we should have a clear communication also of what timeline each application is on. I know the state regulates that, right? I know I kind of have a general sense of it, although I can't tell you today as I sit here that for this kind of application, it's X many months. But I think we should have something a little bit more, since we're going to do this anyway. Because we'll definitely need to make sure that whatever, timeline we suggest for material coming to the planning board, we've got to make sure that it's going to fit in the window
Yes.
that
There's
that
a lot of
application
pieces and
requires.
puzzle pieces you have to
Yeah,
put together to
yeah.
make sure it works. But
Right.
we're not inventing a wheel. I mean,
Right.
there's definitely
Yeah.
Clark did a lot of research too when we were working on it earlier, like what the timelines are for other towns. I mean, there's some towns that you submitted a month early and then you can't submit anything
Anything
else
after
until
that.
you go to the meeting.
Yeah.
And that still fits into the state timelines too. So there's definitely got to be a way that it can be done.
Sure. And I think once we know all the dates, we should consider it. I'm kind of neutral on whether it's an agenda item with the project lead versus let's maybe hear a little bit more from the
Yeah.
planning.
Yeah, my
department.
whole point is, I know Clark did a lot of work there. Now I remember all the emails, and Clark's, you had a pretty good email there. It had quite a bit of information in it. I just think we need to write it down. I don't care
Yeah,
if
we
it
can
goes,
do it as an agenda.
it can, however, but make sure all the board gets it. That's all. So we can
Right.
look
Well,
it
I
over.
do like
Yeah.
that idea, though, that it is something I think once it is finalized, either from planning department decision or from a
Yeah.
board vote, that we do have that as an addendum on every application that an
Yeah,
applicant signs.
no, definitely. Yeah, we all got to be on the same page, including the applicants, the office, the board,
Yep.
everybody. That's
And
great.
then, Chairman Walsh and I talked about this though. Then we really got to stick to it, which
Right.
might be hard sometimes
Right.
because Clark and I
And there
are
might
nice
be some-
humans and we like to try and help, but we're just going to
Yeah.
have to stick to.
And there might be some criteria for special circumstances too that we might have to include, exemptions or something like that, But Laura, when I talked, the other thing that would help too, because if we move the timetable up, so it's like, as you know, things come out in the weekend and like I said, people are busy. You don't look at it until the last minute, and then we have trying to make changes at the last moment. If we could get the resolutions or draft resolutions out to myself and to the project lead ahead of time, we could have a chance to possibly catch any problems with them and fix them before a public meeting too. Yeah, I'm not saying a quorum, just the project lead and the chairman. And we could hopefully be on top of things, make it run smoother.
Yeah, I know the ones that I've been involved with writing the resolutions. It's helpful. I mean, it's a good rehearsal before we have some of the projects are, get a lot of exposure, and we want to make sure that it's as thorough as possible, and that we're not, I don't feel that we've treated any applicant special or tried to expedite stuff, but having that structure in place, I think just benefits the planning department. Helps us enforce a good policy.
And the applicants. It's
Yeah.
nice to know the rules.
Yeah, we can put it under discussion items or under reports, and we can just, update as we move along with it, Main things, get something out that we can all take a look at least start, right? Okay.
Did you want to add anything to that, Clark?
No, I'm good. That's good. Thanks.
No, thanks, Clark. All right, that brings us to commission business. Anybody have any questions or comments for the board or for Laura, for legal? Anybody? Tonight? All right, I have none either. Okay. Hearing no questions or comments, then I'll call, have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So
Move for adjournment by Mr. Khan. Have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Laflamme. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Don't get lulled into a false sense of security. These meetings can go until 10 or 11.
Yeah.
Oh, 11, really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yes.